Dungeon Doodads, Let's Talk
We're
Lore, a podcast.
Pellegrino.
Sam
Roll high,
Pellegrino.
subscribe.
Sam
Welcome
Pellegrino's
back.
delicious, natural spring mineral
It's not
water.
an affiliate, but if they want to, I love that stuff. Welcome
Delicious.
back. Let's talk lore. Let's quote. Let's get into it, Chris. What the? That's your quote. That's
The throwback to the
throwback
one time.
quote. What topics do we got tonight? Let's
Well,
hit
I
'em.
think
Yeah,
there's
good
one when we were discussing it that I think is really one I want to start incorporating more while I'm DMing, and one that, as my background is doing so, foreshadowing the story as we're telling the story. So just foreshadowing events to come within the session.
Right.
And then within the adventure or within the broader campaign. But the idea I love is trying to. I love to do puzzles and piece together things, and I love to throw out the little clues to see who's paying attention, see who catches on to all those little pieces of garlic that I threw out there from the last game, the mirrors and the water.
So
that was picked up on vampires.
So your topic of like how to the trials and tribulations of foreshadowing. You're talking, so like what you did with our last session with the garlic. Let's stay on that. Don't give it away. I mean, although I kind of know where it's going. It's not. They're not necessarily like quest hooks, right? Because I'm trying to when you said foreshadowing things in D&D, I was thinking like quest hooks are like setups, not foreshadowing. What do you mean exactly?
Well, another example I like to use outside of that our last session is one I used recently. Was I had a party that was taking a rest, and I was going to have bandits attack them. And
already good.
Yeah, of course. There are rumors of bandits in the area. Perfect setup to attack people, have a fun fight. Craziest session I think I've done in a long time with 8 people. Amazing. It's fun. So I had the bandits attacking in the last watch. So all the watches leading up to that, I was trying to sprinkle little clues that something was coming to see if they were alert enough to those clues to really catch on.
Right.
Like the first watch, there's random footprints outside of animal prints. There's some not garbage or just refuse of some sort. And they thought nothing of it. I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. The next group, they found some slashes in the trees from like a bladed weapon, and they're a little bit more suspicious. So they were started passing along, keep an eye out for something. So when the bandits did come, they had some sort of warning or heads up, or there is some clues there if they're alert or attentive enough to plan for that big adventure, that big reveal, or the surprise that I might have.
An encounter that you've set up.
Yeah.
So it's like foreshadowing in like the literary term. I'm going to butcher this.
Yeah.
Is like, the character is going to go off on an adventure, but someone says something to him that sort of illustrates, can relate to like his downfall later on in the novel, and like that's the foreshadowing. So that character foreshadowed, his downfall, whatever. I butchered it, but that's about it.
Yeah.
In D&D terms and Dungeons and Dragons terms, it's not like the dungeon master. The lore that you tell could be one portion of like how you foreshadow it. I mean, it's not like, okay, when you go down to the dungeon, there's a monster. Oh, I just foreshadowed a big encounter. But but like how you I feel like you want the characters to feel like it's foreshadowing. I feel like the foreshadowing brings immersion helps that immersive quality. Instead of saying like there's a monster down there, you say like, well,
I want
nothing's
that
come out of
feeling.
that yeah.
I want that feeling of that you're going down this path, and at some point you figure out, based on everything around you, that you know what's at the end, and you remember all the way at the beginning of the path all of these little clues that led you up to there, and you're like, oh shoot, I saw this coming the whole way, and I only found out about it now. That's the feeling I want to have.
So it's like, you know, you start you're at a bar, the characters are at a bar, and the barkeep says nothing, you know, that region it's said to have a dungeon or a cave or whatever. And also, like, later in the conversation, or maybe on your way there, you see a pamphlet or whatever, or something, a note, or meet someone that says something about how people there aren't acting, you know, right, or they're acting in a weird way. And when you get there, it turns out like there's a mind flayer colony, and they're all sort of. Is that foreshadowing, or is that just the event that I have set up for you? That's where.
Yeah, it's the plot hook and the trail leading up to it.
So that's a plot hook.
Yeah,
that's a quest hook.
I think. Yeah, I would like hearing the story of like there's some cool thing there. I'm gonna go there. Maybe foreshadowing is the wrong term.
No, I think it is the right.
But the clues along the way to the path, you already know where you're going, and you have a goal in mind of what you're gonna do. There are evil people over there. We're gonna fight them. But as a dungeon master, we always love to throw in a twist.
Right.
So I love to have twists, and I love to throw in those little puzzle pieces to whatever that reveal is, or that twist might be, or whatever the unknown is that they're trying to find. So that when they do find it, they're like, oh, I knew along the way that it was going to be that.
So when you look it up, it says the definition is foreshadowing, a warning or an indication of a future event. But an example of that is a hero's predicament is foreshadowed in the first chapter. So like the predicament that he's going to have, you guys are going to go into the volcano layer, and you're going to need heat resistance. It's all going to be heat resistance. So at the bar, when you're meeting the barkeep and you ask for a drink, maybe he gives you a drink that's too hot to drink, and you need to find a way to drink it, or something like that. You go to
drinking it, it burns your mouth a little bit.
It burns your mouth, and so that burn or that drink foreshadows the predicament that you're going to have later in the chapter, which is where's your ice? Where's your ice captain? So how do you do that? And that is a cool immersive tactic. It's not a quest hook. It's just like
it's that fluff around.
So let's get into this now. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing that? I have an idea, and I guess it would be like, You make a dungeon, you make a puzzle, and you make your encounter, whatever, your bad guy. You don't have to foreshadow. You're not foreshadowing the necessarily the bad guy, but like let's just say the puzzle, or the feeling of the what's your goal as a dungeon master in that encounter is to have an encounter with a monster who is a shadow or whatever. Maybe a part of the dungeon is, you need light, or you have an encounter on the way there that has a light darkness
element
to it. So it's like the elements. They're not hooks. Not a hook.
It's giving them the clues for the skills or the challenges that they're going to face up ahead.
And I think that this topic might be one of the better topics that you've brought to the table here, because I honestly think it's hard to sort of get to talk about, because game hooks and foreshadowing completely different, and also details. The tree has a scrape on it. That's not necessarily. That's saying, hey, there's a monster nearby. Not necessarily foreshadowing. If
Right.
the tree had a scrape on it, and the
And
tree,
some blood.
right, and the tree like fell over. I don't know, and the tree became a werewolf, a were-tree. No, if the tree had a scrape on it and you couldn't get by it, or like the tree with the scrapes and you're following all the scrapes. I don't know how you do that. So I mean, like, what do you want to foreshadow? Like, is that the goal?
Or this foreshadow of a danger nearby. And I think for my intention in that scenario, I fulfilled the goal that I was wanting of giving little clues. Someone's nearby. It's not just a random campsite. Don't just sit on your ass and play cards. So I fulfilled what I was wanting to do there. But that's why I wanted to talk about it tonight, of how do I foreshadow events or dangers or story elements leading into this dungeon that I'm going to throw you guys into as you guys are starting to go into that dungeon.
So here's another example. So that there's 4 examples here. I just did a quick search. The one where it said that the hero's predicament in the future is foreshadowed at the first one, like Macbeth, or
Right.
like any Shakespeare, like any of that. Like
Yes.
the first chapter, even the old great epics, the first chapter pretty much tells you, this is a story about Odysseus and his wisdom, and he defeats the bad guys in the Odyssey using his wisdom. And he gets pushed up against the wall. He uses his wisdom, and that's it. So that foreshadowed. But there's the next one here says the arrival of a wasp at the table foreshadows what's to come. So, what is that that's coming? So is it one bee comes in, sits down next to you, lands on you, another one, and all of a sudden you notice that all these bugs start coming in one by one, and you guys stay there long enough, and then all of a sudden the place is just swarmed with these massive bugs. Is that a foreshadowing?
What would that be foreshadowing of?
Oh, maybe
A plague throughout the land?
Maybe the foreshadowing element. If you want to use here we go.
Yeah.
Maybe the mosquito. Maybe it's a mosquito that sucks your blood, foreshadowing your problem with the vampires that are that are coming in. That would be one. So maybe that was an example.
The first you set out on the adventure, the story arc. The first day out, you go through a swamp and you get bit by a bunch of mosquitoes.
Yeah, I think.
And then at the end of it, you're fighting a vampire.
I think what we're discussing here is that there's a difference between foreshadowing and a detail. That like a note that is left at the bar, or the scratch on the tree, or whatever. I'm just using the scratch on the tree,
or just
that up, but
a normal
a normal hook
element, element of the story that would be there no matter what.
Right. But
these are other things thrown in.
I think the foreshadowing has to be like a theme, or an element, or a feeling, like a little bit deeper of a detail than just, bugs come in. And now there's big bug invasion. That was terrible. Let's just be honest. Horrible example of foreshadowing. Good game hook, though.
Or the end of this story arc, there is a dispute between a king and a queen, something. And in the beginning, as you're sitting in the bar, you see a man and a woman having a fight at the table next door while you're trying to plan your route in your adventure.
So as a DM, like, when would you put that element in? would you do that at like the beginning? Would you want to have foreshadowing's got to be more thoughtful, I think, than
Yeah.
because it's got to be at the right time.
Hmm.
It's got to be.
Well, I think for me, I like it in random scenarios. I wanted to be there if you remember it, if you're noticing it. It's like if you're watching a movie and there's parts in the beginning that are foreshadowing the rest of the story, but it's the beginning of the movie and you don't really know what's going on yet. You don't know all the details. You don't notice them until you realize that that's what was happening to you now.
It's just
You don't know.
It's tough to like. So, but do you use your characters?
Well, welcome to randomly becoming a writer.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, so foreshadowing could be, you are maybe a way to weave it in that's easier than just like the encounters and like foreshadowing. I like the idea of foreshadowing a predicament. Like that's cool. Like, I feel like a shadow, like just think about a kraken, the shadow slowly following you in a in the ocean, like maybe.
And as you look over the side, you see some bird dive down and catch a fish.
Or you see a ship in the distance and it goes underwater.
Yeah.
And then you don't.
Yeah.
That would. So in our Act 5, where we were on the water for like 7 sessions, 8 sessions, whatever it was, the first time that I might have done it by accident, I had you guys see a ship. Actually, we rolled a random encounter. The random book table foreshadowed what happened, and you guys saw a ship off in the distance go on. Tentacles come up and just draw it in. That foreshadowed it. Later on, the guy washed up on the deck and asked you for your treasure, and he warned you that the Kraken would come if you didn't give it to him. You didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
The guy washing on the shore was not the foreshadowing. That was the plot hook. That was the hook. The hook.
That's the story.
Yeah. The ship, the detail of the ship going underwater and getting eaten by the Kraken was the predicament that is being foreshadowed for you guys. So that's a good example, I think, of one that we did.
Oh.
I didn't think it was great foreshadowing because I didn't think of it as foreshadowing. But I think that's what that is, right?
Well, and that's what you wanted to know. It's like, as a player, you see that and you're like, oh crap. And then later on in the story, you're like, oh, we saw that and we weren't ready for it. We weren't prepared. We didn't think it could happen to us.
Here's another way of thinking about it. And this is the last time I'll do this. Her early interests in airplanes as a child foreshadowed her later career as a pilot. So think about that one. So how would you? So the king is obsessed with the king's interest in money and greed and gold. Foreshadowed what? His later, not being poor, I guess being rich.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so your character, so as a player, you could also do that, right? Your interest in.
I think as a player, you don't really. Well, for me as a player, I don't really know where my character is going because I don't know what the story is going to do to him. Like, you have tortured all of my characters, and I could never have predicted the stories or the changes in their path.
Here, Wilbur's character. Wilbur, no one.
How do you foreshadow that?
Wilbur being too nice to everyone foreshadowed his almost immediate death. Oh my god, that was so funny. Sorry, I'm laughing at the death of your character, but
it's great. I used his death to feel better all the time.
So, maybe the farmer. I don't know. It's hard to like come up with them on the spot, which is why I'm having a difficult time talking about it,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to like throw out ideas for people to relate to, but it's tough. And I think the better, what do you think?
I think it's a topic that we're gonna have to revisit. I think it's one that you've given me a lot of really good ideas and thoughts on that I need to sit with. I think it's inconclusive, but I think it's something that I want to start incorporating more into the games that I DM.
Visual clues,
Yeah.
NPC dialogue, dreams and visions. A player dreams of an endless desert with a massive skull buried beneath the sands. Later, they discover a desert dungeon housing one of the skulls of power.
Mhm.
I guess they are sort of plot hooks. Reoccurring symbols.
It's not necessarily. Well, it's not the hook that brings it there. It's like the signposts you see along the way. That it's the story that's being told that the players don't know is being told.
Yeah. The one who wields me will betray their allies. Foreshadowing a future moral dilemma. That's a cool one. I mean, they're so interesting, and we can stay on the topic, or we can switch over. But there's a lot. There's
I like
a lot
this topic.
of flashbacks and lore drops.
Okay.
You can,
So- Let's go practical with this. I think finding a focus might help. So for this dungeon that I'm gonna torture you guys with, how would we go about foreshadowing the end encounter in the beginning of the dungeon? So we'd have to figure out what that end encounter is. So it's some interaction or some fight. And I think there would have to be some unique element about that fight that I'd want to introduce in the beginning of the tunnel.
So we're gonna have a fight with a vampire. That's what I'm thinking. You've already put in garlic and mirrors, and like
Right.
that already is foreshadowing. It's hinting at the fact that there's probably some sort of vampire down there. Symbols, it says here, symbols, phrases. But it says that one of the main points is don't make it too obvious for the characters. Let the characters do it. So like the quest hook is obvious. Here's a piece of paper. It says go kill this guy and you'll get $10,000. That's not foreshadowing.
Right.
Symbols like what you did, garlic hanging from the,
Right.
maybe a
So-
guy with a bite on his neck or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So like something that, okay. I don't want to ruin story elements for you. I want to be surprised. So let's use an example for you. Let's use a random example. What for a story hook that you would want to run? You came across that list of 10,000 story hooks that we still need to go back and do. You remember what one of them was?
Yeah. So the sea pixies.
Sea pixies. Okay. So what's one idea you had for the whole sea pixie storyline?
So Gregory the sea pixie was actually trying to, I think, gain knowledge of the above world and bring it down to the Unvegan Sea to the king, the Pixie King.
Okay.
So now what do I need now? I need an event or an element that would be.
Well, it's not just like he's bringing information down to the king. It's what's his goal? What's his plan? What's the king's whole? What's his desire with the information from above ground?
It wants to
What
Probably open trade. Probably
potential.
open trade.
Open trade.
Open trade. Communicate and gain goods for his people.
So maybe along the way to find Gregory and that community, you come across a trader ship that travels around to a bunch of small communities and sells a bunch of goods from a whole bunch of different lands. Sort of foreshadowing the idea of this king in this city is wanting to open up trade and start to share with everyone else.
Yeah, or like, yeah. So maybe he wants to, maybe the king wants to just spread knowledge of the Unbegon Kingdom because it's mass, but that the reason why no one trades with them because no one knows about them. So how would you? That would
foreshadow
be the, that would be the issue. And like you could just say there's like.
Well, here's a way.
You find an atlas. There's a question mark.
Or maybe
where the Unbegon Sea is.
You find that trader has a book about the Unbegon Sea that he hasn't sold in 20 years, and he just gives it to him for free to throw it in, get it off his boat.
You go around and no one knows anything about the Unbegon Sea. That's foreshadowing the dilemma.
Yeah, that is. That does that. They're upset that no one knows about who they are.
That's so funny. So it says one of the main things, when I type this in, it says one of the main things to look at when you choose trying to foreshadow things. Major villains' plans or identity. Mm-hmm. Dangerous upcoming encounters. Significant plot twists, like you were saying. Environmental change. And moral or ethical elements. I love the elements. That's my thing. And also, like, you know, what you would necessarily need to use to get out of this predicament is a cool one. Like, you know, you had a dream that you were fighting a rust monster. Next thing you know, 2 sessions deep, 3 sessions deep, a rust monster comes out. Like that's
or you're at the forge, or you're at the blacksmith, and someone, while you're waiting for your weapons to get finished, someone comes in to get some rust polished off of one of their hatchets, and the shopkeep tells them, "Oh yeah, we just use this special chemical, and it dissolves the rust right off." So when they're fighting the rust monster, if they find whatever that chemical is in the cave, they can use it to dissolve the rust.
Yeah, I feel like
give them clues.
I feel like a good way of foreshadowing and differentiating the foreshadowing from a plot hook and just a random cool detail. I love putting details in my dungeons. I also like to put like if I knew you guys going underground and there's gonna be a mushroom monster, I try to have like mushrooms, you know, in the details in the dungeon to sort of show you where you are. That's a foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big mushroom kingdom.
I love that.
So maybe using details like that, but
I think the idea of layers and layers affecting different like radiuses of region. So like the closer in you get, the more intense of the environment you get, and so each step in, you're getting a different like change in weather, change in atmosphere, change in elements, and all of that is foreshadowing this giant dragon at the end of the tunnel.
I just got it. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Foreshadowing in Dungeons & Dragons is best done by details that have that are not just random details that can be forgotten but then remembered by the players. And it's really the players that will view it as foreshadowing. It's because you as a dungeon master are just putting the details out there. It's really the player that has to feel that immersive quality of the detail and the result and the end result. So it's like going back to the mushroom thing, you go into a dungeon, you see mushrooms all over the place. They're glowing. One of them has, you touch one, it poofs out a little bit of poison. I did that for you guys in the mushroom. And then all of a sudden, a huge mushroom troll comes out of nowhere the next session.
That poofs out the mushroom.
Poofs out mushroom. Yeah. So like, did
absolutely.
everyone at the table remember that specific? No, but it was foreshadowing. So that type of detail, I would say, is a perfect example of foreshadowing.
So
there are plenty others.
I think the lesson that I learned from our discussion is don't try to plan too much foreshadowing, because the players are only going to remember what they remember. Just put out all those cool ideas, all those cool foreshadowing moments out there, and see what your players remember. It's not about having that perfect moment that everyone remembers, like, oh, this specific moment was the moment that I knew that you set up to be perfect. It's D&D. Every single scenario is ridiculous and random and not what we had planned or intended in any way whatsoever. So let those elements be random as well. Throw out the mirror and the garlic. I have no idea if you guys are going to pick up on that, but it's cool things I thought would be interesting to the story.
Awesome.
And I know if you do pick up on it, you're like, oh shoot, there might be vampires. So like, okay, like what Adam did, I'm going to grab some of this garlic and take it with me because I have a feeling like that this is important to our survival coming up.
Yes. So, awesome. The time dungeon. The time dungeon. I had two dungeons. They were rectangular, right on top of each other, right next to each other.
I think
one room was the future, one room was the past. And when you guys walked into the future room, the guys had their heads cut off. and the people in the past walked into a room. There were 3 goblins there.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of that larger foreshadowing elements. You had a whole
it was hard
encounter, a multi-session environment dungeon. That whole thing was foreshadowing a whole other story arc.
Oh yeah, and the time dragon. Yeah, so like having a theme sort of
foreshadows the time dragon, and then the time jump,
the time heist. Yeah. We can end the conversation
and what you're
foreshadowing, but yeah,
just like what you're saying of elements that the players forget until you talk about it and you remember.
Oh yeah.
Until we talked about it just now, did not think that about the time dungeon or that time puzzle foreshadowing our time heist until now.
Talk about time.
And that's great. Yeah.
It took 20 sessions, 30 sessions to get 2 skulls. Actually, it took almost 20 to get 1 skull. That foreshadowed our so far 3-year campaign.
Well, we're on what, 80 something?
82 to be. Actually, we were doing 83 on Monday.
But we have 3. Oh, but we've done a lot of things.
Yeah, but here's a good way to end this. Ready? Imagine this, and here's an easy way to foreshadow something. Just throw in a cool quote on a wall, and the players, let's just say the players encounter a puzzle that contains a symbol or a phrase tied to a larger theme. Solving the puzzle unlocks a cryptic message. The message is: faith rots the heart, belief fuels the beast. What is that foreshadowing? Probably Dungeon. Agoth Doomhand's hate of faith, and then his belief in his own righteousness, which is going to eventually be the reason why he is who he is, ultimately.
Nice.
Did you like that?
I did like that.
But yeah,
Someone
dude,
put that on the
great
fly?
topic. Yeah.
Nice.
I randomly threw that to put it together. You know.
Nice. Yeah. I learned. I am happy we had this discussion.
Foreshadowing was dope. Love that topic.
Now I know what I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of the weekend.
Well, I feel like we're gonna do a mashup of Let's Talk Lore, and we're gonna be like, here's the top 5 things that, like, after a year and a half of doing this, here's the top 5 recommendations and what we think. Foreshadowing and refining that skill is definitely top one of the top ones, I would say. Nothing cooler than being a player, or even a dungeon master, but definitely a player when it falls together.
It's so satisfying
cool.
as a DM when you see, like, if you're sitting at a table and you see it in the player's eyes, where they just sit up from staring into their notebook and they turn and look at you and just say, "Damn you." Those are so satisfying moments when the players put it all together from the very beginning. Like, you set this up from the beginning. Like, of course I did. I'm the dungeon master. That's my job.
With that, perfect topic. Roll high and subscribe. Jinx. Personal jinx. I don't forget what personal jinx.
I'll take a sip of my San Pellegrino.
Yeah. Watch, I get an email from Pellegrino that says, "Are you guys hiring?"